The thud echoed like a closing sentence. Final. Cold. The coffin lid shut with a mechanical click. Somewhere in the silence, someone sniffled. Another sobbed. But my eyes, they were on him.
My son's hands slipped into his pocket.
Not quickly.
Not clumsily. Just smooth enough to look like grief. But I'd seen him fold it. The letter I'd placed beside her, my wife's last request. The one thing she'd begged me to include, now gone. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Calvin. I'm 67 years old, and this is what really happened. It began before the lilies, before the lawyers, before the tears that came too late. It began with a whisper. I had written the letter the night she passed. On our kitchen table, lit by that old brass lamp she loved. The same one that buzzed softly when left on too long. I used her favorite fountain pen. Black ink, thick strokes. No edits, no second thoughts. Just her words dictated through breaths thinner than tissue. Give this to them at the funeral, she'd said, voice barely audible. Don't read it, just place it beside me. And I did. Folded neatly, slipped it into the velvet lining of her dress sleeve, right where her hand could have held it. Right where he thought no one would see. The funeral parlor was warm, too warm, the kind of heat that turns sorrow into sweat. Fans rotated above like lazy vultures, and the music, muted organ chords that tried and failed to fill the air, nothing could compete with the sound in my head. The click of the coffin, the rustle of paper in his fingers, the soft scratch as he pocketed what wasn't his. I didn't move, didn't speak, but my hand twitched on the cane. He leaned down to straighten her shawl. That was the moment. His fingers, fast as a card trick, palmed the folded note, tucked it into his inner suit pocket like a receipt. And just like that, her voice was gone. Again, my daughter-in-law approached. Are you all right, Dad? She asked, eyes glassy. I nodded. She didn't notice the tension in my jaw, or the way I kept watching my son's coat. The service began. The pastor read from Psalms. People murmured blessings. And he stood at the podium, pretending to mourn. I lost my mother, he said, voice cracking at the edges. But I gained everything she taught me. Liar. What you gained was sealed in an envelope, and you thought I hadn't noticed. After the service, I stayed seated. Let the others leave first. I watched every face that passed. Every set of shoulders hunched by grief or guilt. He didn't look back. Not once, but he leaned in to his wife and whispered, It's handled. He never saw a thing. That was your mistake, son. You thought I was broken. Not just bent. What he didn't know, the letter he stole was a decoy. The real one, her original, handwritten, notarized version, was already in my lawyer's safe. Signed, dated, witnessed. And that little mic pin beneath her collarbone, the one used for audio clarity during the live stream, still rolling. Every rustle, every lie, every word of that whisper, recorded, saved, filed. You'd think, at 67, a man would grow tired of fighting. But some battles, some are quiet. Some happen in plain sight, without a single raised voice. And those are the ones they never see coming. The lilies hit first. As soon as the service was over, the funeral home attendants began gathering the arrangements. I stayed behind. So did the scent, overpowering, too much sweetness, the kind that clings to your throat long after you've left the room. It was her favorite flower, lilies, stargazers, specifically. She used to say they smelled like clean memories. Now, they smelled like something else, like endings, like grief that couldn't be scrubbed off. I walked over to her casket one last time, running my fingers across the cool mahogany, then turned to the small recording console near the altar. Unplugged, but not before I saw the blinking red dot on the tiny recorder tucked underneath. Still warm to the touch. Calvin, you coming? It was my nephew, Joel, a quiet man, worked in real estate. Didn't say much unless it mattered. I looked up, give me 2 minutes. He nodded, then lingered, as if sensing something was off. Or maybe he already knew. You get it? I asked softly, eyes still on the mic. Joel didn't blink. I got it. He pulled a USB stick from his jacket. The whole thing, clear audio, start to finish. I closed my hand around it, felt the plastic warm against my palm. Did he say anything else? Just that you were getting too old for paperwork. Joel's jaw tightened, and that after today, It was finally over. I breathed out slow. It wasn't rage. It was resolution. He thought stealing a letter would erase her last words. He didn't know she'd written another. Didn't know who she trusted more than him. Meeks and Joel. The house felt hollow when I returned. Her teacup still sat on the counter. Half a spoon of sugar caked inside. I didn't move it. Didn't clean it. I opened the safe instead. A simple one. Built into the wall behind a watercolor painting she'd done in '89. Mountains, fog, muted blues and greens. Inside the safe were three things. The original letter handwritten by her, notarized. A living trust amendment, also signed and notarized. Certification of trust, witnessed and filed 3 weeks before she died. She hadn't told him. Hadn't told anyone but me and our lawyer, because she knew. She always knew. That night I called Joel. Still got your copy of the guest list? Yeah. Send it to me. I'm hosting something this Sunday. He didn't ask what. Didn't need to. He just said, I'll bring extra chairs. Sunday came fast. I dressed simple. Dark slacks, gray shirt, no tie, same watch I wore on our wedding day. Guests began to arrive by noon. Not for a second service. No. This was something else. Something she would have wanted. A reading. I stood at the front porch. The scent of lilies still clung to the pages I held. My son arrived last, wife on his arm. No apology in his eyes, just assumption that I'd moved on, forgotten. He kissed my cheek, cold. Glad you're feeling well enough to have everyone over. I just looked at him. You'll want a seat near the front, I said. He blinked, then shrugged, like I was just old, tired. I walked to the front of the yard. Everyone fell silent. The wind rustled the trees. Leaves scattered like whispers. I opened the envelope. My name is Grace. If you're hearing this, I'm gone. Heads turned. Chairs creaked. Eyes blinked. But I kept reading. In the end, we are not remembered by what we had, but by who we loved, and who truly loved us back. I paused, looked directly at my son. To my children, I leave my memories. To the one who stayed honest, I leave my name, and everything tied to it. Gasps. Movement. A few guests exchanged glances. Someone dropped their cup. I continued. To Calvin, my husband, the man who never betrayed me, I leave full authority of my estate. No mistaking the words. No loopholes. I unfolded the notarized amendment. Held it high, court-stamped, witnessed, filed. I didn't say anything else. Didn't have to. Joel stepped forward. Should anyone dispute this, he said, calm as rain, please note the trust documents have been certified and filed with the county as of last month. The original is here for review, along with an audio recording from the funeral. His wife paled. My son stood up. Wait, what recording? He looked at me. I didn't answer. Joel played the file. The room filled with the sound of whispering.
His voice.
Clearly audible. It's handled. He never saw a thing. Every eye turned to him, and I just stood there. Still, steady, quiet. Some truths don't need explanation. Just exposure. The sun was high now. Its light poured across the backyard in long, quiet beams. Soft at first, then sharper, like it had something to reveal. The shade of the old willow didn't reach far enough to cover my son. He stood fully lit. His jacket caught the light, but his face couldn't hide from it either. It made the sweat on his temple gleam, made the tremble in his lip visible to everyone. Joel didn't move, didn't flinch. He simply held up the trust certification with 2 fingers. There's more, he said, and tapped the folder beneath his arm. My son's voice cracked. This is a setup. You planned this? You all planned this? A neighbor spoke up. Mrs. Daly, old woman, knew Grace for decades. No one forced you to steal that letter, she said, her voice cold as January. We all saw you lean in, thought it was sweet. Now we know better. My son looked around, at people he'd known his whole life. Friends, old teachers. Even his boss's wife was there. And they were all watching, all listening, none smiling. The light made everything too honest, too exposed. I walked back toward the porch. Not fast, not slow, just enough to show I wasn't hiding anything. I opened the second envelope. Grace Florence Revocation of Power of Attorney, it read. I held it steady, filed 2 weeks before her death. Signed and sealed, case number at the top. I let the numbers catch the light. Then I read the next line out loud. All former powers granted to Daniel Florence, my son, are hereby revoked in full. He choked. You knew. He looked straight at me now. His voice small, like when he was 10 and caught breaking the neighbor's window. I didn't just know, I said. I watched. Watched while you smiled at your mother with one hand on her will. Watched you make calls when she slept, asking about account numbers. Watched you throw away her second draft and replace it with one you thought I'd never question. But Grace never trusted blind. She wrote the final version in ink and sealed it while I watched. And she signed it while Joel stood witness. She mailed it herself, recorded delivery to our attorney. The light on the porch shifted. A breeze lifted the edges of the papers in my hand. Like even the wind wanted this all to come into view. Then came the real break. Joel pulled out the final document, the one they hadn't expected.
I wasn't going to read this, he said.
But Grace asked me to, if things went wrong. He unfolded the page. To Daniel, you may be wondering why I didn't tell you about the changes. Why I didn't trust you.
It's because I did.
Until I saw what you did with it. The crowd hushed again. You manipulated the caregiver into thinking I was confused. You withdrew money without asking. You told your wife I wouldn't last the month. There were audible gasps. His wife, face drained of all color, took a step back from him. Turned. She didn't touch him. Didn't blink. The light had done its job. There was nowhere left to hide. He tried to leave, took 2 steps toward the gate. But Joel raised a hand. You should know, there's a motion filed with the court. Your access to the estate is suspended. Pending review. He blinked. Joel added, the bank accounts are frozen under emergency fiduciary hold, filed yesterday morning. And a copy of this gathering has been submitted as supplemental evidence. My son's face collapsed inward. He wasn't crying. He wasn't shouting. He was drained, like a man who realized the stage had been built around him, and he was the only one who didn't know the play. The light on his shoes made the dust shimmer. He looked down, like he wanted the ground to take him. No one moved to stop him when he walked toward his car. No one waved. No one called his name. And when he drove off, tires crunching the gravel path, not a soul turned to watch him leave. Only the light remained, and the words she wrote. The door to the lawyer's office was heavier than I remembered. It groaned as I pushed it open. It's a slow, dragging sound that filled the quiet space. The kind of sound that sticks with you. Like the last page of a story, turning itself. Joel followed behind me, carrying the box. Inside, trust certifications, bank statements, audio transcripts, and a copy of the funeral guest list, annotated, every detail Grace had anticipated, every move Daniel had made. The receptionist looked up, startled. We have an appointment, I said. She nodded. Yes, Mr. Florence. Attorney Sanders is waiting. The office smelled like ink and leather, old books, new tension, but I wasn't nervous. I wasn't even angry. I was steady. Sanders rose from his chair. Tall man, silver hair, firm handshake. He gestured toward 2 chairs. I assume you're here to file? Joel placed the box gently on the desk. One corner split slightly, revealing the edge of Grace's will, her handwriting peeking through. We have the original documents, all notarized. I tapped the folder, and we have recorded proof of theft and intentional concealment. Sanders opened the file. Read silently. His brow rose. Then she smiled, that small lawyer smile, the kind that comes when things are airtight.
I'll prepare the court notice. You'll be protected.
Full recovery of assets pending the judge's review. He paused and asked, and the sun? Frozen out, I said. Everything locked down. The bank already flagged 3 transactions last week. They're cooperating. Sanders nodded. He slid a document toward me. Sign here to enact successor trustee authority. I didn't hesitate. Pen met paper, my hand steady. The sound of the signature scratching across the page was the only noise in the room. Sharp, final. That evening, the smell of lilies was finally gone, replaced by something cleaner, fresher, like paper and soap. I opened Grace's old jewelry box. Inside, untouched, were the heirloom pieces we meant to pass on. Not expensive, but meaningful. A locket with our wedding photo, the charm bracelet she wore when the kids were born, a ring with her mother's initials etched in the band, all still there. He hadn't found them. Or maybe he hadn't looked. That made it worse. That he didn't even want her memories? Only her money. The next morning, the newspaper arrived late. But I didn't need it. The real news came by text. From Joel. Court orders in full control. Granted, judge cited clear and calculated intent to deceive. You're safe. He's done. I didn't reply. I just turned off the phone and stared at the sunrise for a long while. It was quiet, not peaceful, but still. 1 week later, Daniel showed up at the porch. No car, just him, in a battered duffel bag. He stood in the same spot where Grace had once planted her favorite tulips. His voice barely carried. I didn't know she'd go through with it. Yeah, I didn't move. Didn't answer. He looked down, scuffed his shoe against the gravel. Dad, I made a mistake. A long silence passed. Birds sang. The wind stirred the chimes. Finally, I said, mistakes are forgetting to sign a birthday card. You committed fraud. At your mother's funeral.
He opened his mouth.
Then closed it. I walked to the screen door, held it open.
Don't come back, I said.
No letters, no calls. And if you challenge the will again, I'll see you in court. He looked at me one last time.
Eyes wet.
Face hollow. Then he turned and walked away. Some days now, I sit on the porch and read her letters. The real ones, not the ones she left behind out of duty, but the ones she wrote in notebooks she never showed anyone. Little entries, moments, secrets, like this one. Calvin sees everything. He doesn't speak often, but he never forgets. I trust him to finish what I can't. I closed the notebook, oriented my fingers across her handwriting. She had trusted me, and I had honored her. Not with noise, not with vengeance, but with truth. Weeks passed, then a month. The light in the house changed. Brighter, somehow, less filtered through grief. The chair by the window, hers, still untouched. But the silence felt different now. Not empty, just full of things that didn't need to be said anymore. Her voice wasn't gone. It was everywhere, in the rustle of the wind, the creak of the floorboard near the hallway, the scent of her favorite tea still sealed in a glass jar in the pantry. Some people try to move on. I decided to stay still, to let the truth settle, like dust that finally has permission to rest. Then came the letter, postmarked from 2 states away. No return address. But I knew the handwriting, even through the hesitation, the trembling. Daniel. I unfolded it with steady hands.
Dad, I don't expect forgiveness.
I barely expect this to reach you. I only want to say, I thought it was about fairness, about what I deserved, but I never saw what you really gave me. What you both gave me, I see it now. I read the rest in silence. She ended it simply. I'm not asking to come back. I'm asking to become someone different. I folded the letter once, then again, placed it beside the recorder from the funeral. Side by side, 2 confessions. One stolen, one given. The town moved on. So, did the gossip? At church, people still whispered. Not about me, about the way the truth landed like thunder that Sunday. Mrs. Daly brought extra cake to the next gathering. Joel visited every weekend. We never talked about that day, but every time he walked in, he nodded toward the shelf where the letter sat. He knew it hadn't been about revenge. Not really. It was about weight. Lifting hers, letting go of mine. Then, one evening, a small envelope slid under my door. Inside was a photo. No words. Just a snapshot of Daniel working at a roadside diner. Apron on, hair grown out. Face leaner. He wasn't smiling, but he wasn't hiding either. I stared at it for a long time. Not with pride. Not with pity. Just recognition. Some truths don't need to be spoken twice. The day I finalized the trust transfer, I sat in Grace's chair. The light through the window hit the page just right. I signed the last line, transferred everything to the children she named in the final version. Not based on blood, but on trust. Gerald, my niece Samantha, 2 godchildren from our church. All of them people who showed up. Not just when it mattered, but when it was hard. At the next family gathering, I stood near the porch and watched the younger ones play. Laughter bounced off the wooden beams. Someone spilled lemonade. A dog barked in the distance. Joel leaned beside me. You think he'll show up? I didn't answer. Instead, I said, if he does, we'll know if he's different by whether he knocks or walks in. Joel nodded. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out something small. A folded paper, frayed edges. The letter Grace had originally asked me to place in her casket. He'd found it, not during the funeral, not in Daniel's coat, but later, tucked behind a photo frame in her sewing room. An earlier draft, he passed it to me. She must have written this first, then changed her mind. I opened it, and there it was. If they betray you, show them silence. If they regret it, show them the door. But if they come back empty, let the wind decide. I folded it, slipped it into my pocket, right where Daniel had once slipped her last words. Except mine stayed. You don't win every battle with fire. Sometimes you win it with memory and patience and the sound of your own breathing in a house full of echoes. Grace left more than a will. She left a mirror, and in it, we all saw what we really were. Some ran, some returned, and me, I stayed, because some truths don't need to be rewritten. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.